Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I have, kind of like part two. It will be for Hannah Martin in Virginia. This is a 2010 Ford Escape. So to make the story short, she had the cluster back, and as I still doing some things that she sent me even a video where the car is she run the car and the gauges on the fuel and the temperature are not reading properly, and then she turned the cluster off, and after like 20 or so seconds the needles go down, like almost like a losing power. So I'm not really that familiar with this Ford cluster to see if that is actually a normal thing, because sometimes modules do a power off and then like a loss, not like a loss of communication, like a going to sleep thing, right? But I guess, like I said, I'm not sure if that is something normal or not. So I have the cluster ready to go here. As you can see, it's already set up in the bench, and I have an arm so we can, or you guys will be able to see it better from that position. So let me move you over there. All right, so we have it in here. I need to power this up, and I should have the scanner already here, and I don't. So let me turn the scanner on. I just got back from work, so bear with me a little bit. So this is exactly what I'm trying to do for her, because she took this back to me. She took it out of the car and bring it over yesterday. So, and I tried to do a few tests during the night. It was a little too late because I was finishing another computer, and I'm back now the next day trying to do a video to show all to you and to her to reproduce her concerns, because they're actually happening here too. Let me just start. I lost the sequence of my password. I'm so tired, guys. I'm sorry. All right, let me, in the meantime, the scanner is getting connected. Let's power this up. As you can see right now, that fuel gauge, or sorry, not the fuel gauge, the temperature is reading half, and the cluster is not even powered on. So that is definitely something is going on. And she said it wasn't having that problem before. I mean, needles are set up with like a gauge that I put in there. So it could be that the needle is loose and it's not, coming back. But I haven't even opened it, so I'm trying to reproduce her concerns. All right, so let me, in the meantime, that's powering up. Let me power up the cluster. So I need to turn this on. All right, so as soon as the power is up, you can see that the needle went down to 0. The needles are resetting, and you can see right now that is a normal thing when you have no power. Hopefully you saw that tachometer and a speedometer going even below 0. That's like when you lose a battery voltage. But then I was doing the test very quickly yesterday before, again, bringing it here. And when I turn the ignition off, if I wait for like 15 or 20 seconds, let's keep an eye on those two needles. And you will see, you can see that the anti-theft light is blinking. The car is like, let's say you just turn the car off and you lock it off or whatever, right? So let's see if it does the needle down. Let's keep an eye on that. Okay, there it is. All right, hopefully you see it was for like a fraction of a second, then down. So is that something abnormal or something wrong? I'm not again, that familiar with these clusters to say, yes, it's something bad or not yet. So let me try to communicate with the scanner. So I'm going to get the scanner in the screen. So just, again, give me 1 second. I'm trying to make this all live. Keep an eye on the needles at the same time to see if by any chance that happens again. Because if it happens in multiple occasions, I would not consider that to be something normal. If it happens after you power off, because usually, who's going to stay there to see that? Manufacturers know that you're just going to, turn the car off and walk away, and then that could be just to reset the needles. Let me see. Okay, this is a Ford. Okay, so sorry, that was my mother-in-law with a drink, so I have to take that. So I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so let's now we have the scanner in there, so let's get Ford. We cannot do automatic ID because nothing else connected. Just lower something I have in my way here. Can bring this down. So this is, I selected, I think, escape, all-wheel drive, and this is a 3.0. So make sure that we can connect to the instrument cluster. Let's go to code menu and let's read memory codes to make sure that we can indeed talk to the cluster. Well, actually, I made a mistake because right now the ignition is off, right? All right, so let's turn the ignition on. I don't know why my TeamViewer session has timeout, so give me 1 second, guys. That shouldn't have happened. I think I need to do an update, so give me 1 second. All right, so let's see if this works. I think that the normal thing of TeamViewer tried to make you buy a license and you have to send a message to them. It was actually an update in there, but I'm not sure if that's going to correct the situation. Yeah, no, it's actually timing out. Okay. All right, guys. So yeah, this is definitely a no-go with TeamViewer. So if it goes away from the screen, all I'm going to do is just tell you what I'm doing because it's definitely kicked me out multiple times. So there's nothing I can do with that. All right. So yep, as you see, just did it immediately. I don't know why they think I'm using this commercially. And let's just understand one thing, right? So using TeamViewer for your own use, as long as you're not making money out of it, like as far as using the TeamViewer to, you know, like support somebody, it's considered personal. And like in this case, I'm using this my computer to control my scanner. So this is not that I'm providing support for anybody. But we'll see if they remove that, because I even tried to buy a license and that even doesn't work. All right, so since I'm not going to be able to do that, you know, by hand in there, or not by hand, by in there. So let me just put the scanner on my lap. All right, so I have not seen the cluster reset as I was doing before. So let me just see if I can connect. All right, so yes, I am connected to the cluster now. It's going to show you that momentarily there. So yes, and I don't have the B1202. Well, this is something that then I want to share with Hannah and with you guys. So the way the cluster came first to me, it was definitely, well, not powering up or doing it intermittently. The connector was partially desoldered, broken connection, you know, broken solder or cold solder joints. That's how it's called. I fixed that, and I noticed, you know, that it had a problem with the fuel gauge. For those that have not seen the first part, I will put a link on the description of this one. So you know, I did a few tests, a few sweeps, everything is good. But then when I give the cluster back to Hannah, it's now doing other things that I was not aware of. And I said, Hannah, don't worry about it. You're dealing with Mike Salazar Diagnostics, and I am a very transparent person, very honest person. I try to, you know, follow that in all my life. So I said, you know, just send it over and I will look at it. You know, I'm a person. I mean, I'm a human being. I can make errors, and I can have missed something that I was not too aware of. And that's the only reason probably I didn't see that happening, right? So, and since I do the tests, everything was working good. But let's do more tests. So I'm going to go over to functional tests. I want you to keep an eye on the temperature gauge, but that's the one that is actually giving us more problem. And that was not there before, but, and like I said, I haven't even opened the cluster. This is exactly as she brought it to me. So I'm increasing the temperature right now. I'm in 60, 80. It should not move it until around 160. I'm in around 150 now. I can definitely see the needle trying to move, but it's not moving. I'm already in 180 to 10. And we can see the needle moving, but it's already in 240. That should be already in like almost full. And now it's in 270 and nothing. So I'm going to come down. And we can see that needle now resting in another spot. So what I want to do is stop the video here. I'm going to take the cluster apart and see if by any chance either the motors are broken or we have a problem in the needles itself, because this is something that could happen, you know. The thing that can happen is the actual center of the needle being too loose, and I can fix that, not a problem. That's something really easy to correct. So let me take the cluster and I'll be right back. Take the cluster apart and I'll be right back. All right, take the lens off. Make sure we are recording. Yes, we are. Let me power it back on, because yeah, the needles are actually set properly. Nothing is wrong with that. So yeah, this is not like the needles are out or anything. Something has got to be, and I want to like now show you that this, I can move it forward, right? Because that's a normal direction, but the going down, I cannot. Well, I did move that one. I shouldn't have been trying to move that one, because it's actually I have, you know, like some readings in there. But all right, so let me do the tachometer on and off, just to make sure that we are indeed still with communication. You see the lights went off because we're entering diagnostics. That's very normal. And then now I'm moving the tachometer off and on, and that is normal behavior. I can definitely see something that Hannah was telling me about the needle a little off. So, but I can correct that later. So yes, it's a snitch off. The speedometer is right. All right, so let's do the speedometer too. We can do on and off. Well, actually, this isn't a speed. I want to just do the on and off. Well, actually, not sure why I went to 60 miles an hour, because I didn't select anything. You see, it's kind of weird. Now, let me just make sure it's off. All right, so let's do speedometer on and off, because now for some reason going into there, so I'm going to set it off, and then on, and then off. And we can see the needle staying in there. All right, let's do the fuel gauge. Set up in percentage, another error. I'm sorry guys, I'm a little tired, a lot of work this week, which is good, but you know, your body can just do so much, right? Or I'm doing the fuel gauge on and off, and we can see how it's responding, you know, properly. I just don't like that. Sometimes does it, sometimes it does not. I'm trying to get it off, and I did feel something in there. You see, it's like a, wonder if it's a stepper motor, because I can definitely feel the resistance. You know, I'm moving it no matter what. We're doing testing here. So right now it's in the on position. It's kind of like going into the stop, and I can feel the stop in there. It's like almost like the wheels inside, because let me take one stepper motor out so you guys can see it. All right, as to show you, they're still brand new, so this is not like I'm, you know, putting junk or anything, and they come really protected. As you see, they are not just inside a padded bag, because these are top quality parts. These motors are expensive, but so this is a brand new one, and as you can see, it's very well protected inside a plastic box with a foam, and that's just the way these ones are. So inside these ones, it's like a clock. So we have little gears that can break. And this is kind of like what I feel in here, because I can move this one. You see, it's like, that's the stop. I can definitely feel the stop. And now it's coming back and does a stop. Let me do, that's kind of like weird. I can definitely feel like grabbing on the fuel gauge. Not sure it's because we're in there or not. So I'm going to, let me exit the test so you'll see the lights coming back on. Come on. Oh, because we're still here. So, all right, so we're going to click exit that, and then we can see the lights on the cluster coming back on, and I can see all the needles shaking. That is completely normal after the diagnosis, right? I'm going to power off, so I don't have any resistance from the normal power on. But yeah, as you can see, I can move the needle, and then that's a stop. So I can definitely have a stop in here. Okay, thank you, Mama. So she's telling me the supper is ready. All right, so I love my mother-in-law. She's such a beautiful woman. It's like my wife and my mother-in-law. There's like two angels always with me. So I'm very happy for that. All right, so I was saying in here, so I can definitely feel the stop, and it's not like I can move the needle easy. So, and I want to show you that I cannot go past there, even if I push hard. don't want to do it too hard, but they can be moved. But I can feel the motor going into full and it's stopping in there, that's the normal movement on those needles. This one, on the other hand, well, let me see, because now I don't feel it. Before I was feeling a little more resistance, probably because we were doing the tests. But I don't feel nothing. Now that I have it like this, I can do the same thing with these needles. And this is how you know, can set it on. Like this needle should be actually, like if I put this one, you see it's kind of like a little lower than 0. And then when you turn it on, it should find a 0. Now that I move this one, it takes a little wiggling time. You see it's not in the 0 perfect, and that is okay, because that means I have to come down a little more. But yeah, all I need to do is move the needle, put the ignition back on, and reset the needle in 0. Again, just a little more in both. And I hope that you can see that it's not easy. This is not moving. Sometimes it's a little hard to just move it a snitch, and you can go past it, and then you just need to reset it all the way around. Just a normal thing. See, it's like now this one is a little better, but now that one is not. And I can, you know, go like this and try to do it with a power up, which is not abnormal. But I can definitely feel the resistance on the needles. You know, that's all right. So let me rest it out. Yeah, this is not going to be right because they're not in the 0. So I should be there, and I should be kind of like around there. Again, I can reset the needles, and that's not a problem, but I can definitely feel that the needles are in properly and they're not loose. So let's forget about the position. Actually, the tachometer is perfect now. Let me reset. Well, I'm actually going to probably take this apart again. Let me try this just one more time. And you guys can see how simple and easy it is to do that. I mean, if you're in a car, you can just, you know, power off, power on, power off, power on. You don't need to really have a scanner. Well, right now they're perfectly in 0, and the tachometer is perfectly in 0. These two I have not touched it. They're on the same spot that there should be. Like I said, you know, if I turn this completely off and I move the needles to a position that they're not supposed to be, let's say, you know, like in packaging and then send back to you. When you power on, those needles should find a 0. See, that's what the motor is looking for, to get that resistance and then release it and then back to 0. Now all the gauges are in 0. And then you're powering on, and then if you're given any fuel gauge or so, like a fuel reading, I can change this. Let me make it go over to 55. That should be around middle of the way for the temperature. If I wait, because remember, the fuel gauge is not to be moved fast. So slowly, if I wait here for 10 minutes or so, right, that gauge will find its position by itself without turning the ignition on or off. That is just the way it is. But just to make it quick, if I turn this off and I let it rest and I turn the ignition back on, it immediately should find its position on middle. And we can see that on the gauge, on the temperature, sorry, on the fuel happening. So again, there is finding a 0, and she doesn't have this situation. When she's in the car, that needle does not find is 0, like it's not going off or something else is keeping it on, and she's having a humming noise, something is shorting or something on the car, which is hard to, you know because I'm not there, right? All I can see is this in here. All right, so if I power back on, the needle should find the middle, and yeah, I mean 55, whatever that is, it's finding it perfectly. And when I'm doing the tests, like if I go over to the functional test, again, this will power off as soon as I enter that any of the gauges. So let's do the speedometer on and off again. You see how they turn off? The needles should go into 0, and then I can do now power on and off. I'm in the speedometer, so
All right, we can see the on and then the off going back to 0. Let's do the fuel gauge, because this is where I find some discrepancies. Okay, on the fuel gauge, if I go on and off, we can see on and off working pretty good, right? One more time, on and then off. Once again, we can see the needle going back and forth pretty good, and it's almost in the perfect E, right? Hopefully, yes, you guys can see that in there. So one more time, on. You can see how it goes. Looks like a little over full, but when it comes back, it's exactly in the E. And that could be that I need to adjust it a little bit, but let's not look into too much. Let's just look into where it's coming from, where it's going to, and if it's coming back to the same position. But what I have noticed, at least yesterday, is when I use the fuel gauge on percentage, and I'm going to do the same thing with the temperature. Let me go, I don't know, 50% on the, I'm doing the fuel. Well, that actually looks pretty good on 50%. A little, I think it's maybe a little off, like onto the high side, but again, let's just consider that normal. Let's keep an eye on where that is. I'm going to 100%. All right, so right now we're on 100%, and as you see before with the on and off, it's left definitely a little over the full. And when you're setting the full, the fuel gauge or the temperature, you want to reach those higher numbers first, not the lower numbers. Like in here is a 0, and this one will be the full. But okay, so it's in full, it's good. Let's go quickly. I'm actually coming back very quickly to see if it comes back to that E. Doesn't look so bad. Let's go back to 50 again. But now we can see that the needle is not in the, I'm in the 50. So I'm not sure if it's a glitch on the scanner, because as you saw before, when I was going out, I was putting them in 60 and I wasn't commanding anything. Or if we do have a problem with the gauge. So let's go back to 0. It seems like it's a little higher than before, but it's slowly coming back to there. Not sure. Yeah, and I can feel it's a stopping there. It's not like the needle, you see, like that's where it should be, right there, not before. So let's do 50% one more time now that I push that needle in there. It's actually in the wrong spot right now, right? So let's put them in the right middle, just to see if we can make it react, right? So let's go back to 0, 10%, 0%. So that went almost okay. 50%. I'm sorry, guys, that I'm taking the time, but this is how it's tested, right? So let's do 100%. I'm in 100% now. You can see now that the needle is less past as before. It's more like the normal. All right, I'm going to get out of the fuel gauge, and you can see how it did find the 0, and it went down all the way down, like it's the scanner commanded it to go to where we were before. So I'm going to enter the fuel gauge again, just one more time, percentage wise, and see what that needle does. All right, we're on 0. That should be always the 0. So let's do 30%, and let's come back to 0. So we're below empty, and that's the way the needle should be on the fuel gauge, because you have the reserve, right? So, all right, so let's go to 50%. Now I'm in 50%, and that is quarter tank, so that should not be a 50%. Now 100%, and we're not even close to 100%, that's like 3/4. So, going down to 0, and we're back in 0. So let's do 100 very quickly. I'm just doing a couple of tests now. We're doing 100, and we're only half of the way. So let me go back to 0, because I think this might be a glitch in between the scanner and the actual cluster, and not the cluster itself, but we'll see. I'm going to go slowly. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. See, it's like if I go slow, it gives more time to the gauge to respond. And if I go too fast, again, this is a fuel gauge. It's not a speedometer or a tachometer. So 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%, 100%. So yeah, we can definitely see that if I go slow, that gauge is actually accurate. I'm going 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, and we can see that needle almost perfect in the middle. 40, 30, 20, 10, 0. So hard to reproduce here. So I'm going to try to do again in the temperature gauge. I only have temperature. So I'm going to go slowly because these two needles are different. Temperature in Fahrenheit. I will tell you the reading. Hopefully you saw that that needle went up a little from whatever the 0 was. And now it's actually on the 0 as far as 0 Fahrenheit. All right, so I'm going to go slowly and I'm going to tell you the reading. So I'm now 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So all the readings are going to be in Fahrenheit. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180. 180, we're already in the middle of the way. So I think that what we had before is me going too fast on the changes on the needles. And it's nothing wrong with the cluster. Because let's keep doing this. And I'm sorry, guys, but again, if you feel this boring, I'm doing a test for a customer. And I think that is there is a lot of good information that you can use for yourself if you're a technician. Or if you have a problem in your cluster, because you can do this in the car, right? All right, 180. 210. Funny that went from 180 to 210. That is the difference. So 210 is pretty much hot. So 180 is normal. Well, remember, it's a little hard to know as far as all I can see is resistance, because in here we don't have, like, I don't know what the middle of the gauge is for Ford. So 180 to 10. 240, which is should be overheating. 210, that's coming back normal. 180, right in the middle. 150, 120, 90, 60, 30, 0. All right, one more time going up. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240. Going down. 210. I can see the needle moving. 180, 150, 120, 90, 60, 30, 0. Yep. Not sure. I'm not really sure what I can see here, if it's any wrong. I think that, I need to reset the needles on these two gauges just to be exactly as right now the speedometer and the tachometer are, because she told me there was a little off the tachometer when I agree now that I can see it from here on this angle. Before, now it's actually really good. The speedometer and the tachometer are now exactly over the line of the 0. I will need to reset data fuel and the temperature in the maximum position and then going down from there. What I would do is probably look into, let me just actually go over to the information. with you guys. I'm right now here, so let's go over to her folder. Let me stop this 1 second or take you over to another view because I don't want to show all my customers' information in here. Actually, it was not really hard. It was a lot of already done in here. So sorry, guys. Well, let me just put this in here. So what I'm looking for is the diagram. So instrument cluster 1, pinpoint network, instrument cluster colored. Do I have a colored? Pinouts, fuel level open. I think I have the pinouts in here. Am I going to have to open a few of them just to see if the temperature is a message or is a direct signal? So 62. We got the fuel tank unit because that is a direct signal. So this is what I'm talking about. Direct signal is like right here. We got the oil pressure switch. That's a direct line. So it's not a digital signal coming from like a communication. It's actually a wire connected directly from the sensor or switch in this case all the way to the cluster, right? The same thing is happening with the fuel level, right? It's a direct wire from the sending unit all the way to the meter. But I'm not seeing yet the temperature gauge. So 1, 2, and 3. So we have, yeah, no, it is not. So the instrument cluster, we got high speed and medium speed can. All right, I have the pinouts because sometimes manufacturers don't give you all, just, I don't know, because they are like that, right? So let's look at the pins and just go slowly one by one to see if we see anything about, temperature sensor. So fuel level return, message center select, ground, switch oil, fuse, transceiver, connected diagnostic sensor, fuel level, FLI, message center, not used, circuit breaker, compass, connector diagnostics, and connector diagnostics. So no. And this is a problem for me here, Anna. Well, not really a problem, but I cannot then, because when we have the instrument cluster, like let's say, in the case of the fuel level, it's a direct wire, then I can use a decay box and use resistance based on exactly that. Again, if you want to see the information, which I can actually show 1 second in here. Make sure I got the correct one. Yeah, right here. So, oh yeah, no, that's not the correct one. Let me just, oh yeah, right here. This is based on one of those data pits, or not data pits, flow charts from Ford. They were kind enough to give us information that says, the fuel level pit, monitor the fuel level. This is doing the test, and it's 0 when it has 180 ohms, and I already know now because of the test we've been doing as well. 90 ohms when it's in 25%, 55 ohms when it's in 50%, 30 when it's in 75 ohms, right? And 10 ohms when it's in 100%. So then I can move the gauge and know if it's accurate. But when you have a message on the bus, right? So this is coming in the high speed can bus or medium speed can, depends on, I don't know what it's coming from, but if it's coming from the engine computer, most likely it's going to be in the high speed can. It's just a message. So all I can do is do exactly what we're doing in here, which is sending the same signal that we have on the scanner for me doing temperature changes. So right now it's a 0, 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, 120 degrees, 150 degrees, 180 degrees, and 210, and we can see the same behavior every single time. So if I were to see, that I'm providing a temperature and it goes into a completely erratic reading like I was doing before, but remember, my mistake was that I was changing the values on the scanner too rapidly for those two needles to correct itself. This is not a needle, again, like the speedometer or the tachometer. They are meant to be moving really fast. So this is a completely different circuit internally in the cluster. So Hannah, realistically right now, I don't see nothing wrong with this. I think that the cluster is actually operating completely properly. The needles are set properly as far as the depth. They're not loose. And yes, like I said, the thermometer was a little off, but I can definitely correct those, and I think I have it right now. I'm going to double check the accuracy of the position on the field gauge and just go by what I can see in here. This is something that if it's not accurate, like a normal temperature, and you will know more than anyone exactly where the middle should be on the coolant temperature. Removing this lens, your mechanic, if they want, they have to do it. Let me show you that in here. So this is the lens on the instrument cluster. It's held by two torque screws, which they're right here, so I can show you. So this is just one of the screws. I'm not sure how much you will be able to see from there. But yeah, there are two coarse screws in here. I can probably show you that better in this capture. So yeah, that's one of the screws. So there are two screws in there. And then all you need to do is, I will always start on the bottom, just popping these little tabs. You just put I use a plastic tool to go under it and start to just popping them out. It's pretty easy. If they're mechanics, they will be able to open this, and I think they already did because they were trying to solder the connector, so they know exactly how to remove this. Because all I can see right here is percentage. So in this case, temperature. I would be better to have a 50% on the temperature, because if I have a 50%, I can say, well, 50% should be middle of the cluster, right? So at least in this one, you see I just went out and I hit exit on the test for that needle, and it went nicely down to 0. And based on the pictures that I say from your first time, and this is how I also set the needles, as to where they were before, when the needle, when the cluster came to me, because this they took this apart. So if it's a little off, they're going to have to adjust it themselves, because it's nothing I can go by, but only the information that I already gathered, right? All right, so let's go on the fuel gauge, because I want to do the fuel gauge just because that one is in percentage. And the fuel gauge, I can go 10. Sorry, I went too fast. 10%. 20%, 30%, 40%, and 50%. So in 50%, let me move you here. In 50%, I can then at least put the needle in the middle of the way. And if it's off a little bit, then I can adjust it. 60, and I'm going to go slowly, because now I know that this needs to be slow. 70, 80, 90, and then 100. And I honestly think that fuel gauge is very, very accurate, because it's actually on the top of the full. Right? 90, 80, 70, 60, 50. Let me just take a look at that one. Be a little that needs to come this way than nothing. 40, 30, 20, because that present didn't happen. 10, 0. And then if I exit here, this should release the needle, and it did. Let me just make sure. But yeah, it released it, but not until I turn this off. So let me turn this off. Right now it's off. Not the battery is still on. Yeah, it's not released. So I need to kill the battery, because even with the ignition on, that needle was still being, received. Right now I can move it. I just want to go. Yes, the snitch hurt. I want to do this. You guys, so I'm going to just put them in there again, so you see where the needles reset. Power on. This is like battery was completely disconnected. Ignition on. And I'm going to re-enter the fuel gauge on percentage. All right, fuel gauge percentage. We can see a cluster going off. 10%, 20%, 30, 40. I think I went too much. 50. It's so delicate. All right, so let me exit. And I'm going to power this off. Well, actually, I need to exit completely from that menu to let the cluster reboot. But yeah, so this is just going to be me actually trying to reset the needles. I honestly see no problems in here, Hannah. I think that this is going to be check powers and grounds in the car. At first, I thought it was me having problems on the cluster because I was just going too rapidly. And I hope that my own mistakes in here can help somebody else. And I will not remove this from the video like that. You guys can see how it's supposed to be done, because if you go too fast on the scanner, it will happen exactly what I was doing before. If I go step by step, not as a problem, because you see, if I do the full sweep onto the gauges, they all go back and forth, not a problem. So that is actually a test that the same cluster does. Let's say, I don't know if I have shown that in here, but if I go over to the code menu on the scanner, right, and I do a self-test, let's say, I want to see the pulse, and I go into continue key on engine off self-test. This is going to put all the needles in the reset state, and it's going to sweep all the needles from 0 to maximum. You're going to see that. And then boom, back to 0. And so what we see here is completely normal operation, and then it will come back to whatever. So we have a temperature, a fuel level, because I'm providing 55 ohms. So now I know now, and since before that is the 50% of the needle. We got no temperature reading because this is not a direct wire, it's a message. But you saw that all the needles are going back and forth normal. So my mistake was going into the functional test and going too quick as I was changing the positions of the needles. But realistically, Hannah, there is absolutely nothing wrong with your cluster. The only thing, again, that I'm not sure, and for all the watching the videos in here, if you got a 2010 Ford Explorer, Ford Escape with a 3.0 or a cluster that looks just like this, please help us out. Put your comments in there. I'm going to show you what this one does again one more time. If I turn the ignition off, just ignition, and my wiring is done correctly. We can see the TEF light blinking in there. This cluster will reset the needles, kind of like almost when you, like the same thing when you see when I power it off. Just for a brief of a second, it goes like down and then comes back. So keep an eye on those needles right there. And then boom, right to the 0. And everything is good. You can see still the TEF light blinking. And it does it only one time. And Hannah noticed that. I'm not sure again, because when you get a problem with something, like in this case, your instrument cluster, you start putting more attention into things that you probably would not even notice before. But now, since there is a problem with the cluster, now she's looking at and everything. And yes, that's how you learn too. But so if you have a car like this, and if you don't mind, can you please just go and see if you turn the ignition on and then off and wait for like the same thing, 10 seconds, see if the needles that, and put the comments on this video. I would really appreciate that. And I know that Hannah and all of ones that have this car will appreciate that too. That's how we share information and we learn from each other, right? So Hannah, again, for me, as it is, this cluster is not a problem. All right, guys, thank you so much. Sorry for taking all your time. I'm trying to help a customer. I tell them, I'm a human and I can make mistakes, but if this is a mistake, I will definitely try to correct it. But I honestly don't see a mistakes in here. I don't see a cluster problem. So I'm going to call Hannah and tell them that I think that this is time for them to put them in the car, and I can help the mechanics to do tests on powers and grounds and see why is the cluster not operating properly. Because let me try to find those videos. All right, guys, let me make sure. Yeah, I'm recording. I'm going to move you over to my screen. So this is private videos, so please, I know she's not going to mind. So what she's experienced, I'm going to play one by one. So she's seen that reset after she set the ignition off. So
yeah, and I'm gonna try to start it up. See what we see.
So she's starting the car up. Yeah, I can definitely see in there that the tachometer just turned off. But you see the way those needles shake in the car?
Temperature did not sweep. And now the fuel gauge is showing.
Yeah, the temperature, Hannah, for all that are seeing in there, if the car is cold, the temperature should not move, and there's no sweep in there because you're not doing a test. So that should be a normal reading on the gauge. Depends on how much fuel you have or no. But let's see, because right now she has less than a half a tank, right? So in between a quarter and half a tank. So I'm going to just lower the audio. Hopefully you guys are not picking up too much. And so the temperature should not move until the car gets completely warm. So that is normal. But let's see what it is and see if the next start, it does the same. I don't know exactly how quickly she was doing this video. So let me play the next one up. And I'm going to have to scroll down to those. So that was the first one. So let me see. Oh yeah, she has a number. So let me go back to see which one we watch right now because I was not putting attention to that. So we watched number 4. So let's go in order. So video 1. So this is ignition on. So right now, video 1, and we have 3/4 of a tank. And it didn't went to 0. Ignition back on. Now it's almost into full. I don't like the way that is shaking in there. It's like it's not releasing, like something is shorting. Let me just revisit that. Wasn't the temperature up before? Yeah, it's like almost into here, like a quarter of a temperature, and then it went down to 0. Well, she turned the ignition off. Let's see if she turns the ignition back on. Because it's still, do you see the needle? Okay, let me just stop it right there. And this is a problem, Hannah. Right there, we're seeing a problem. That needle should have come back to 0. Something is either a wire shorted to power that is preventing that, and that could be, any voltage, remember, or any voltage, because that signal is reaching a ground through the actual sending unit. So if it's having a voltage, that could prevent that from coming down to 0, because we can see that every single time in here. Again, one more time on the cluster, it's off. It has not done that any single time. I'm going to power it on, and it should find the temperature. I'm sorry, the fuel gauge, and you see I have not moved it. It's on 55, and I can move the needle back to put them into 50%, which I can do really quickly. You see, this is what is happening right now. You see, Hannah, what happens in there now? The needle is stuck in there. Well, it happened because I kill all powers and grounds. So right now, that cluster is like almost I unplug it. So of course, if you kill powers and ground, that needle cannot come back to its position because it lost all the voltages or all the grounds. So this is where I'm thinking either is a short, we have a bad ground, or something that is creating all those gremlins in the car, because I cannot see that in here. So, but if I power up, I'm not going to. Well, actually, let me try to bring this needle close to the 0. All right, so I mean close to the 50%. Sorry, I am powering it up right now. Like I connected the battery for the first time. That cluster was out of the car, so no ignition yet. So all needles should be in 0. Let's say they are all in 0. And now when I'm powering the ignition on, it should find almost a 50% of the tank, because I'm in 55, and I'm still a little off, right? Yes. So I need to go a little lower. I'm going to power up quickly, no matter what we're doing. Just a test, right? I'm trying to find a position. I'm going to do that quickly, no matter what. When you turn the ignition on, that should happen either way. So let's see if we're close to the 50%. A little more still. Trying to make this as good as possible. See, the only time that I see those needles shaking is when you're powering up. And hopefully you can see that. I'm not sure if you will be able to see that or not, but yeah, that needle is really, really close, but it's still a little more. I mean, like a very hair off. All right, so I'm trying to just to put them in the 50% because that 55 degrees should be 50% of that tank. Is it closed? It's perfect now. All right, so right now it's exactly on 50%. So yes, what I want you to see is this, Hannah, and let me go back to the video with you guys because this is, I mean, part of the diagnostics too, right? So I want to see how she was doing this. So the ignition is on in here. It's not even a half a tank. That is almost in like higher than half a tank, right? So almost full. And you see the ignition is off, but the needle didn't come back. I'm just going back into that position. You see it's like right there. But she turned the key off right there. In that tank, needle is like shaking and then it's staying there. So I want you to see this, Hannah. So first, not sure how much you can see from there. It's a little dark. So let me put this in here. I'm going to get a little light in here so maybe you guys can see those needles. Use the microscope. And I'm going to make a closer capture. If I can get this raised a little bit. As I will move this. Sorry for the shaking in there. All right, I'm going to kill the battery off. Like completely all the power. See, that needle got stuck into the middle. So I'm going to power it on. I want you to see how the needles are going to the 0. See, they're still going down, finding a 0, and then now the fuel gauge went back to its normal position because I'm providing 55 ohms. So that is exactly on the 50. If I kill the power completely, like it loses the battery, like either a main ground or the grounds for the cluster or the main power. Well, what does that needle say? It stay on the middle. I want to see by myself. I'm not sure if she turned the ignition back on, but she did not. Let me just see. I'm now going to get you in the video to see how many times she turned the ignition off and off in this one. So she does a 1. And when she turned the ignition back off, that needle takes a little time to recover. All right, so let me show you that what I'm talking about because that's very important. So right here, when she does that first, but she turned the ignition on and it went almost to 3/4 of a tank. She turned the ignition off and it went on down, not to fully empty, but then when she turned the ignition back on, that needle didn't find the 0. Look right there. You see it didn't find the 0. It's just like whatever it was. So let's try to do that here. So, okay, so right now we got no power. So I'm going to power it on normally, even with just ignition on. All right, so we got the ignition on. It's in half a tank. Nothing is happening. I turned the ignition off. That needle went down to 0. It didn't stay anywhere. I hope you can see that isn't completely empty. That is exactly the empty because we're finding exactly the zero. I'm going to move this just a little tiny bit more here so you guys can see that better. And just because of the zoom that we have, but I'm going to move that in there. You can see the 55 ohms in there. All right, so we got no ignition. The power is on. You can see that flashing light on the, right on top of me right here, right? Right, that red light. So the battery is on. The grounds are on because my wiring is perfect. So grounds and power are here. The only thing we don't have yet is ignition. Ignition on. Yeah, well, you see all the lights coming on. It takes a little second and boom, up to half a tank. Without that shaking, without that nothing. So I'm thinking, Hannah, that we are missing a power or a ground in the car. And I'm actually I am very, very confident of my diagnostics. So I'm going to go over to just one test. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to do that off of the video. I think this is more than enough to condemn not the cluster and something in the car. Just looking at that video that you recorded, Hannah, right there, with those needles shaking and doing weird, gremlin things that we cannot see here. The problem is definitely in the car and it's not in here. I know that this is going to be a long video, guys, and thank you so much for all that watched the entire video. And for those that didn't, well, you don't know what I'm talking about now. But I'm trying to help Hannah, and I'm here. I don't care how much I have time to spend. I mean, I did one video yesterday night, and I wasn't too happy with it. I'm doing another one today because I want to help her and help the mechanics. That's what I'm here for. So I am very happy. This is a no charge to the customer. And I'm trying just to help a person that wants her car to run good and wants to be trusting these needles. And I think that right now I'm overstretching my tests, and I am very confident that this cluster is 100% fixed. The problem, Hannah, you have is in the car. All right, guys, thank you so much for visiting the channel. I hope that you see all the effort that I'm trying to put together, not just only for Hannah, but for all of you that are watching the videos. Please subscribe to the channel. That helps my small business and my small channel grow. And that at the end of the day is helping all my family and everything. So God bless you all that subscribe to my channel and help me grow. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye-bye.